Uncuckables.
Hello and welcome to the Uncuckables for another week on this day that has been plagued by both fire and storms here in Melbourne, where the studio is. I'm Tim Wilms, editor-in-chief of The Unshackled. I'm joined, as always, in the studio by David Hiscox, editor of the XYZ. How are you?
Excellent. I love the hot weather. I got up at 6 a.m. this morning. I was in the pool at 8. It was beautiful. Love it.
And we've got second time deplatformed,
yes.
Richard Wolstencroft, director of the Melbourne Underground Film Festival. Yes.
The 20th Melbourne Underground Film Festival has been deplatformed. Our second venue we lost a couple of days ago, so I've now decided to postpone the festival to April 2020. So we'll continue to fight to get the festival on. But I've been running events in this city with the Melbourne Underground Film Festival and the Hellfire Club for 30 years almost, and it's the first time anything's ever succeeded. So, it's like it's kind of a first off. We really are living in a kind of 1984, Maoist, Stalinist, soft totalitarian.
It's just the free market working, don't you know that you're a practitioner of bad speech, and so people are just...
Yes, that must be it. Yeah. We are all partners in thought crime here at the Uncuckables.
Don't you understand that nobody is disconnected from the consequences of our speech?
Yes. I mean 500 emails, which are basically all sort of the same, and if you tracked maybe the IP addresses and sort of where they originated
they all come from Eastern Ukraine,
something like that.
It's a Russian conspiracy. Yeah. No. Luckily, the last venue I had was Chase's, and a friend of mine owns the venue, and they did give me all the letters, so I know exactly who it is now, who's actually been trying. Because the other venue wouldn't tell me who was trying to deplatform me, but now I know.
Now we are live, of course, on the Uncuckables YouTube channel as per every week, which continues to grow in subscribers. But we are not at the 1,000 threshold, which YouTube, we should say, consider you for monetization, because Mark Collette, he's got, was it 94,000 subscribers, but they terminated his monetization or YouTube partnership or whatever you want to call it. And so that's why he uses Entropy, which got Maddie onto it, then got us onto it. Kind of get Due, my Right Minds New Zealand co-host, to go onto it, but so far he's been too busy. But as I was saying, yes, you can go over there to where you can set a poll. You can ask us questions. It has to be a question, or we're accepting tips now, but it can't just be a statement. It's not like Q&A where Tony Jones says we'll take it as a comment, even though all the comments he takes are probably pre-written comments. And best of all, you can send through a super chat, or it's called donation there, where YouTube, Google doesn't take a cut of it, and Entropy takes a less of a cut than Google and YouTube did. And so far they haven't deplatformed anyone, so high five for Entropy.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're good service as well, apparently.
Now, the weather has still been the focus with, it was New South Wales that was in the grips of fire last week.
It's a climate change emergency in Melbourne today. We had like 4 seasons in a day, didn't we?
Yes, it was 40 degrees this afternoon, and then there was storms. Storms occurring later this afternoon, and a cool change. And I noticed last night that this strange weather had made the creepy crawlies come out. I noticed on my car there was a spider, a ladybug.
Yeah, they always know.
There was a whole bunch of weird creatures, and of course,
welcome to Australia.
Yes, but I know you and Maddie on XYZ Live agreed with Israel Folau's hypothesis about the cause of the bushfires.
So you're saying basically like what we're seeing here is actually a plague.
Well, it reminded me of a plague.
Yes.
The last night and there was also
so you agree that God is punishing us.
Well, I also heard from one of the Bendigo Faithful today, because they have every Thursday their annual what are they called again? Yeah, where they Bendigo City Centre, midday, they hold their patriotic free speech signs. I heard from one of them that they found a brown snake in the Bendigo Council building just as they started building the mosque. And of course, brown snake
There are a
is...
few snakes in there, aren't
Yes,
there?
is the most venomous
We need to
of
worry
the Australian snakes.
We need to worry more about the snakes probably in the local council itself, rather than the actual brown snakes. You'd probably do a good job if they were let loose.
And I mentioned
Well,
this...
everybody knows a snake is a snake, yeah.
I mentioned this with Dewey on Trans-Tasman Talk on Tuesday evening, that the fact that Israel Folau, he said the bushfires were punishment for abortion and same-sex marriage. And of course, New South Wales just passed their abortion legalisation bill. But it reminded me, remember we had Black Saturday in February 2009, the deadliest Victorian bushfires. That was a few months after Victoria passed its abortion law reform bill, and Danny Nalia, who is the leader of the Rise Up Australia Party and was the leader of the Catch the Fire ministry, said that the fire was God's punishment for Victoria's abortion laws. And as you know, I'm not religious, but I couldn't help but note the coincidence.
Yeah, well, basically, the way I look at it, what Israel Folau was saying was 100% biblical. Like, there's just a strong correlation all throughout the Bible of God saying to people, if you disobey, you will be punished. Then they disobey, then he punishes them. Like, he destroyed the world once with the flood. He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah.
California's been on fire. Yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. That's the, what's it called, the metaphysical way or theological way of looking at it.
Whether you believe the Bible or not, what he said was actually entirely
it's just essentially
biblical.
a theological position.
Yeah.
But obviously there are sometimes natural disasters in areas that aren't necessarily being punished by God. But it's interesting. It's an interesting position, and I don't have any problem with anyone saying that kind of thing. Why should they not be able to say things like that if they want to?
He also blamed it on Israel Folau same-sex marriage, which, it was 2 years since the yes in the same-sex marriage survey. I am of the view, given that what Netanyahu said in 2009, that it's related to only abortion killing the vulnerable, not same-sex marriage.
Well, the way I see it, like it's you can see that our country is in idolatry. Like, our leaders are worshipping the green religion, and that's having
Mammon and Moloch.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
And like, if you're talking about actual policy positions, like, you've got local councils all over Australia preventing people from managing their own land to actually clear the scrub, to actually reduce fire danger. Yeah. And they're doing this because they worship at the green altar in the first place.
And it's disturbing the way that the Liberals go along with a lot of this bullshit, and also, even the Liberal leadership, I think under Scott Morrison, they've mishandled the whole farmers thing, and they've mishandled the fires. I mean, Tony Abbott was actually out there fighting them. I mean, that's the kind of thing you want to see a leader doing. Scott Morrison, I don't know, he's running around with cricketers and bringing them water. He's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of sports assistant or something. Maybe that's what he should be doing for a job.
And then counter-signalling any Christian who actually says anything biblical.
Yes, he came out strongly that many Christians would be offended by what Israel Folau said.
But he didn't say that it was unbiblical. He's just said that they'd be offended.
I think even if you're an atheist, you still should recognise the kind of social importance of Christianity to our civilization, and that is essentially the religion of our Western countries, and other ones should be strongly discouraged from existing inside the West.
Okay, I'm just doing a poll here. So what is the religious cause of the fires? Is it just abortion, or is it abortion and sodomy? So come over to Entropy and participate. I'll be interested to see what you all have to say. I said to Dewey, because New Zealand is, Jacinda Ardern wants to pass the same abortion law that we've got in Victoria and that they tried to ram through in New South Wales. I said to Dewey that if a natural disaster plagues New Zealand in the aftermath, I think I actually would become convinced of the existence of God. So that if there is some natural disaster and another massacre of some kind doesn't count, it has to be a natural disaster. Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm going to say this on this show. If something happens in New Zealand after they pass abortion law reform, then 3 times...
Attention Jesus, attention God, we can convert, this is an important week, we can convert Tim Wilms of the vast New Right Media Complex.
For fire and brimstone to New Zealand.
So burn down New Zealand this week and we've got another convert. This is all working well.
Quiet, because they might misinterpret that.
Amen.
It's okay. You're only inciting God to do it, not anybody else.
In their eternal wisdom, if they think it's a good thing. I mean, obviously, one can only make recommendations towards this. It's up to them.
Now, of
That's
course,
epic.
probably the biggest sinners, both biblically and or metaphorically and secularly, has been the corporations this past week because Westpac, you remember back in June, they closed Blair Cottrell's bank account for commercial reasons and said we can shut down your account and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, we found out, and I'll just get the article up. Say something while I'm doing this.
Say something while he's doing this.
Here we go. Here.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yes, the Financial Crime Watchdog, which is the Australian Transactions and Reporting Authority Commission, has begun legal action on Wednesday, accusing Westpac of 23 million breaches of anti-money laundering laws and seeking fines of up to 21 million for every transaction Australia's second largest bank failed to adequately report on time. And the money transfers involved child exploitation and violations of counter-terrorism laws, and they were warned about this in advance, and they didn't do nothing about it. So I suspect that they closed Blair's bank account because, of course, their superficial understanding is, Blair might be involved in some suspicious activity.
It's incredible that someone who's basically just a nationalist or patriot gets shut down. But I mean, the vast criminals who are involved in capitalism, all their accounts are still open, baby. You know what I mean? So it's just, but it's interesting the way that they always just focus. They're the only ones, who are having their bank accounts closed. I mean, that really tells you something. In the sense like that level of attention shows you how big a threat that the new nationalism is to our capitalist overlords.
And we saw a few months later that ANZ was just closing a lot of the bank accounts of just regular level patriots and their families as well, which makes you wonder, with Westpac in the news this week, and there's pressure on their CEO, Brian Hartzner, to resign, that maybe something about ANZ will come out shortly.
Yeah. Well, they're shutting down the accounts of regular patriots. Blair Cottrell made a point of, he pointed out that Victoria Police had been seen videoing the rallies, and so it's there's the implication that there's been collusion between Victoria Police and the banks to basically identify who these people are. And
Blair's really interesting. He's essentially an Australian Tommy Robinson, and you can see though that the media powers that be are very careful not to create a Tommy Robinson out of him. I think UK media, for whatever reason, somehow kind of ended up sort of promoting Tommy's views, and I think Blair could definitely occupy that kind of position. But they really are very careful to totally marginalise anyone who actually basically wants to support our nation, and actually is quite outspoken on it.
That's quite interesting, 'cause I haven't read the piece, but I know that there was an article that came out this week in the mainstream media talking about the fact that the only reason that what they call the far right hasn't actually really taken over in Australia is due to ineffective leadership.
Yes, there was, because there's been that committee, Senate committee on national identity, which is headed by Senator Amanda Stoker, who's LNP, Conservative Libertarian Senator, and Labor, veteran stalwart Senator Kim Carr. And there was SBS highlighted the submissions by two academics saying that they want the major parties to put nationalist parties last on their how to vote card. So obviously they mean put communists above nationalists.
Yes.
That's what they mean.
Yes. 100 million dead means nothing to these people. But so the authorities are absolutely shit scared of Blair Cottrell. They have to keep him, they either want to put him in prison or they want to keep him in a legal limbo for as long as they possibly can.
My advice to Blair would be to maybe go a little bit more centrist. Someone made a comment before that Tommy Robinson supports Israel. Well, I mean, that could be a tactical decision in the sense that, like, if you do that, then you'll get put on the air. So,
this whole
you mightn't actually have to
push
like them. You know what I mean? You can just lie. You can say, "Oh, I love Israel," and suddenly you're on television. You know what I mean?
God bless
With your
Israel.
far right.
Just say God bless Israel.
Exactly, and then you get put on. Of course, you can still hate it in your heart. You know what I mean? So, I think Donald Trump is like that as well. He's doing a lot of stuff messing with the Jewish globalists in America. So he gives Israel all these things because that way, at least it looks like he's helping them. You know what I mean? And at least confuses the confusers. Sometimes there are people on the far right who signal pro-Israel. I don't have a problem with that because I think it's a tactical decision. Because this power is so vast that you have to sometimes make compromises to it, to even exist within the media spectrum.
You could have compromised your Facebook account. Maybe you'd still have a venue.
Well, this is true. And
Bang!
I don't know. I'm known for saying controversial things, and I don't know. They just focused on
take your own advice. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, you're saying to Blair to become more centrist.
Oh, no, that's advice. It doesn't take
but you're not taking your own advice. Otherwise, you'd still have a venue.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't.
But while we're on the subject of Westpac, of course they're one of the woke corporations. So I just want to play a couple of their recent ads. This was for business banking in Australia. Illegal transactions, but wait, there's more. This is
that a helicopter?
I thought that was
right at the end.
Yeah, that's the guy just taking off, fleeing the country.
This is one of Westpac's scholars here.
For a long time, I honestly thought that I was the only gay Indian woman in Australia. My name is Mikara, and I am the founder of Ethnic LGBT+. When you don't see yourself, the message you get is you are invisible, you do not matter. I wanted greater representation for culturally and linguistically diverse LGBTIQ Australians.
Ethnic LGBT+ really helped me be more confident about myself and helped me to accept who I am as a person.
It is so important to me to help others like me in my community because stronger communities means a stronger...
If us Australians actually want to stop mass immigration to Australia, just show that ad in every country in every single one of these source countries, because the people will see this ad and they'll go, I'm not going to Australia, my kids are going to turn gay.
Which is actually true.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Muslims
children of Asian or Indian immigrants, they come here, and a lot of them come into the gay lifestyle.
Yeah, well, it's like when, Mormons get outside of their little church for a little while, they go nuts. Like these people, they've come from a very strict family-oriented, traditional values society, and they come to the West where we're completely degenerate, and they get complete sensory overload.
I think that, this is, in a way, many people from foreign countries can be allies to the new right, because they are traditionally conservative. People from Africa are the same. Many people from Asia, they haven't had this shit shoved down their throat, almost literally, for 40 years. And
Are you saying that they eat the poo-poo?
Sorry?
They eat the poo-poo.
There you go, in Uganda. I went there. I shot a film there 10 years ago. So, they were ultra-conservative, and I actually spoke to them about British colonialism. They missed us. They said the country was much better run under the British. We paid a decent wage, like a living wage. Now the people who run the country now, it's absolutely, they're all gangsters who work for the globalists and Wall Street powers, the World Bank. It's insidious rubbish.
Now, of course, as you are all aware, because Facebook is not G-rated,
It isn't.
or we should say indecent, it censors the F word and T word.
Censors a lot more than that, I can tell you.
Yes, I'm just using an example.
Yes.
We shouldn't name the unnameable because YouTube is the same.
Fuck them.
But yes, Bonds, which is Australia's most famous underwear ad,
I've already vomited once.
They
You have to
had
show me
this
again.
Christmas
Oh,
ad, which is
Just
to-
take it down.
Yeah, everyone's seen it now.
Oh dear.
But yes, obviously,
How fabulous.
How
How fabulous.
now I can sit on repeat.
obviously, like underwear, it's well, the word means that it's worn under your clothes, but underwear commercials these days seem increasingly sexualized.
Oh, they've been sexualized for you.
They have been.
Yes, but
But
it's
they were
more
heterosexual,
But that,
Yeah, at least they were heterosexual.
We
yeah.
can let them get away with
but
that.
the
Yes.
thing is, that ad leaves you in no regard of what's coming next. Pardon the pun.
Eat
Yes.
the poo-poo.
Yeah, they're gonna eat the poo-poo.
But there was, I know, because I went to do some further
Uganda,
investigating on
minister
the Bonds page
Carefully
here,
put it.
and this is another one of their recent promotions.
Yeah, that's
Oh
even
dear, yes,
more
yes,
disgusting.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We know that.
Yeah, and this is their whole Christmas promotion there. So there's
Oh,
loving
yes, yes.
loving couple on
Loving
the left,
lesbians,
loving
interracial
couple in the
couples,
center.
and loving
lo-
homosexual
yeah,
couples. There you go.
So no straight white.
or no straight two white couples.
Yeah.
I'm detecting a theme here.
Yeah. It's almost like there's some kind of memo that's gone round and they've all read it and they're all doing exactly the same thing. Yeah.
But
It's just an ideology, isn't it? At its purest.
Yeah.
Bonds say they're standing by their inclusive advertisements.
Yeah, well, let's see them go the same way as Gillette.
And I know that Matty, he picked up, well, this trend has been going for a while, but that McCain's, the frozen food company, he did a whole video on his Matty's Modern Life channel about, where's the video here? I don't think I got it on here. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment.
I'm reading the
Blah, blah,
comments.
blah.
Why, just the disgust.
Yeah, boycott bonds.
Here we go,
Families
here,
come in
yes.
all shapes
Does everyone remember this ad?
But it's
One of
mealtime.
the interesting things
They bring
about
us
these kind of
together.
ads is like, you know, sometimes we bring attention to them by this focus we face on them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just, like, I would just ignore this bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, hope it goes away until we, you know, essentially take over and then it will go away.
Now, obviously, a lot of Christians have been repulsed by, well, it's not just that it's a LGBT lifestyle. The fact that it's basically soft pornography in the Bonds case there, but we don't have it in Australia because probably it would be too controversial to open one. But Chick-fil-A is a US-based fast food
I'd love to go to that. That sounds
outlet,
great.
but the owners of that and the CEO Dan Cathy, they're devout Christians, and they said in 2011 that they supported traditional marriage and families, and they're actually closed on Sunday because that's the Christian
holy
day of the Sabbath. And but they'd been copying flack since 2011 because they'd given charitable donations to Christian groups which don't affirm LGBT lifestyle. But they announced
It's this slow creep of kind of, you know, some kind of Western culture revolution.
announced Chick-fil-A ending donations criticised by LGBTQ activists after years of backlash. So they'll no longer give to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the Salvation Army, two groups that have been criticised.
The
by...
Salvos.
Yes.
They won't donate to the Salvos.
Well,
Velvet-
Ellie
Velvet-
Goulding, who's a British pop star, she said she won't perform at some US show because of the Salvation Army's involvement.
Wow.
But yes, I'll go down further in the interview. Oh, look, just in the middle of this ad is an article is an ad for Will and Grace.
Yeah.
About, you know the plot of Will and Grace?
Yes.
Yes, a gay man lives with a Jewish woman.
I didn't know the last bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, so it
Which is
says...
why I've never watched it. I think we said that last time.
But
You know,
it's...
you can avoid all this shit. I mean, you know, I even say that, you know.
Yeah, so somebody said it was expanding partnerships with the educational nonprofit Junior Achievement USA and the homeless youth organization Covenant House International, which those both affirm the LGBT lifestyle.
So
And so Christians have been basically saying we feel betrayed. But if you
so basically everybody cracks eventually.
But the point that I want to make is that I long for the Milton Friedman days of companies just out to make a profit by pleasing their customers. Why can't they just focus on, like, look at Westpac?
Why can't you just be like a Jew?
Like, they're putting out all this woke advertising,
Do anything
yet
for money.
they're committing all these illegal acts. And if you're eating Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches just because they're a Christian company, and then you're going to stop eating them because they've gone against their values. I mean, I've never tasted a Chick-fil-A, but the test for me would be, do they actually taste good? Like, that should be, if a product is good. It shouldn't be... Because I showed the Sprite ad on my show last Friday night, which is about... They have chest binding in the Sprite ad. There's nothing in that ad that tells me that Sprite tastes good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, our whole... the corporations have basically had the Marxists walk through them. The cultural Marxists walk through them.
That's why...
It's everywhere. And there's nothing that we can do about it. It's why we have the expression globo homo. It's like they're all globalists and they're all pushing the same agenda. And
certain agendas have come into it,
Yeah.
and that they have found that they're able to weaponize them as they were now weaponized by mainstream media, that they hurt Western civilization. The only reason, it's not because the globalists have any particular alliance with the trans movement or the gay movement or any of these things. It's just that they figure if they use it, they will use it in a certain way. The climate change agenda is the same.
Yes.
You know, they believe that they can weaponize it in a certain way against us.
it's not even about money anymore. It's not about them making
No,
money.
they're heading in towards. Well, they're driving Western civilization towards a cliff, and it's like a Titanic towards an iceberg. There, and unless someone stops it, well, we're going to go wrong.
Well, Chick-fil-A said that part of their reason is that they want to expand into liberal markets because they've opened up franchises in Canada and England and Scotland, which have had protests. So they're wanting to be a global outlet.
Oh, well.
There's a reason why we have the expression globo homo. Yeah.
Is that all for companies here? Oh, yes. Qantas brats.
What have they done?
Yes, because... Well,
Something about Will.i.am?
Yes. I'll go to the article here.
Yeah, please explain.
Please
I actually don't know what happened, but I know that there was
here. Rapper Will.i.am asked to back down over racism claim. He claimed, I'm currently on a flight from Brisbane to Sydney. I'm sorry to say, me and my group, they had the worst service due to an overtly aggressive flight attendant. I don't want to believe she's racist, but has clearly aimed all their frustrations on the only people of colour. And he actually named the flight attendant who...
They were probably behaving obnoxiously. So
Yes.
That would have had nothing to do with it.
Because on Jetstar, which is a Qantas... it's Qantas's budget airline. This Aussie family who was over there from Medding, they claimed that they were kicked off because they were Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And then earlier this month, the Veronicas, they were kicked off a Qantas flight. The federal police were called in. They actually put in... They've deleted their Twitter account now, but this was their last tweet. We support Will.i.am. Sadly, this female flight attendant was one of the two attendants involved in our incident with Qantas. We feel sickened that she was given no reprisal and has instead continued to abuse her position, discriminate and misuse the full force and intimidation of the Australian Federal Police to her agenda. In this case, to menace Will.i.am and other POCs on this flight. Both our incident and the recent not taken further by the AFP, stating it is a Qantas matter, not a police matter. After the first incident, Qantas should have run a genuine investigation into the matter instead of shifting blame and denying accountability. This should never have been allowed to happen. A privately owned corporation allowed to have used a public resource for personal discrimination. Alan Joyce, you need to do better. And Qantas has actually said that if Will.i.am, if he doesn't retract, they'll fund the flight attendant's legal case to sue him.
Why don't they just ban him from flying? He's a cunt, no doubt.
Because their employee has been shamed to 11 million followers as a racist, and the Veronicas, well, they deleted their Twitter account after this, have said, yeah, she was horrible to us as well. So basically, you've got one of Australia's. They're not that famous anymore. They haven't released, I think, like a proper album since they were like 18. The Veronicas.
They still try to put stuff out, but like nobody's interested.
Yeah.
Basically, nobody's interested in late 30s lesbians.
Well, they're late 30s now.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But yes, you have these two once famous musicians that basically just a random flight attendant, and yeah, like there's, as you said, there's cunts on airplanes all the time.
Yeah,
and with
you
regard
can't really be obnoxious to get the attention of a flight attendant.
Yeah.
You know, they would have been behaving obnoxiously, and you see it sometimes on a few flights to you know, Southeast Asia that I've been on. Sometimes there's an ethnic minority carrying on. It's like you just don't behave that way on a plane, and people don't understand. And sometimes it's like a, you know, like a yobbo as well. They'll behave that way. There's a certain kind of code of behaviour on a plane, you know. You know, and you can get annoyed on planes because there can be long flights and it can be irritating. And you've been held up at the airport for 10 hours, but like, you know, it's like, I don't know, basic manners has just disappeared.
Maybe this flight attendant is the only one who actually has the balls to stand up to
Yeah,
famous
good on her.
people being obnoxious.
Fuck Will.i.am. We should not even let him into the country.
Well, it called him a rapper. He's not a rapper. He's a thief.
Talentless globalist punk.
Rap is theft. We should make that
stupid.
clear.
It's
Yeah.
just stupid. His music's lousy. You can get fucked.
so somebody said that Will.i.am behaving obnoxiously, it's because he and Fergie have split up, because Fergie was the other artist from the Black Eyed Peas, and there's been a lot of talk this week that a lot of things were better when Fergie was there. Obviously, Prince Andrew and Manchester United.
That was funny. I saw that meme.
Yeah, so Will.i.am, it's not his fault, it's the Fergie withdrawals. That's just a weird meme conclusion I came to.
Okay.
But yes,
Okay,
a plane is not a normal like storefront. I mean, you need to follow the safety instructions. Obviously, there have been terror incidences on planes. They've crashed, they've blown up, gone into buildings.
And you get told when you enter a plane, like, you do what we say, otherwise you can get
Yeah,
arrested.
yeah.
Otherwise you can get arrested.
There are basic levels of authority, you know. That, you know, I mean, you are flying through the air at 40,000 feet in the air. I mean, you know, there are a lot of things that could go wrong on a plane if everyone started to misbehave. You know, you don't fuck around.
Then again,
And,
do you know what?
The stupidity of people these days is beyond me.
What would actually be even better if this flight attendant was actually genuinely racist? It'd be nice to have some pushback from the Qantas staff against all the PC
She wouldn't have been
bullshit
racist. She
that
would have
Qantas
disliked
did.
obnoxious people. And, you know, this people... Will.i.am is undoubtedly obnoxious.
But can you imagine like a Qantas flight attendant saying, "Get the hell out of my country"? That'd be amazing. I'd
At
love
least she's
it.
helping them. She's at least flying them out of the country. You've got to give credit to this
Yeah.
woman.
But it's good to see finally a company standing by their staff saying, no, you're an obnoxious cunt customer. We're
is
not
true.
going to put up with that
Yeah, that is good. Yeah,
abuse.
that is good.
All right, what is next? Yes, so I was wondering whether Israel Folau's latest sermon would influence the Morrison government's proposal to put through a Religious Discrimination Act. The Attorney General, Christian Porter, addressed the National Press Club. He actually wants to extend religious exemptions to anti-discrimination law from not just schools, but to aged care and not-for-profit as well. I'll have to double-check that. But yes, he wants to actually expand. I mean, if you are proposing a Religious Discrimination Act, then obviously it can't clash with other anti-discrimination laws. Yeah?
I don't really follow.
But yes, the Morrison government is still proceeding with the Religious Discrimination Act. Yes, protect hospitals and aged care. But the more interesting thing that Christian Porter said at the National Press Club, which I know that you and Maddie have been prominent on, is that Christian Porter calls for Facebook and Twitter to be treated as publishers, which means that they could be sued for defamation.
He's caught up with mid-2018. That's good to see. Yeah.
And I heard some prominent libertarian who'd say this would destroy free speech on the internet, like it hasn't been already destroyed.
Yes.
And basically, Facebook is being a publisher at the moment because they have community standards, which are pretty similar to what you would call in a traditional publisher submission guidelines.
Yes.
And if it was a platform, you could put up whatever you wanted, as long as it wasn't illegal. But community standards, that's just what Facebook deems offensive. So they are a publisher. They decide what is published.
Yes. Yeah, you're spot on. It's good to see this understanding making its way through the government. As like we know that government makes often makes decisions sort of incrementally. So there'll be a lot of discussion about this sort of thing. There'll be like meetings and like committees and all that sort of stuff and reports. But it would be nice to see them actually take action like down the track, and it would be nice to actually see them pull up Facebook and eventually break Facebook up.
It would. It would probably destroy Facebook.
Yeah, it'd be quite beautiful.
Good to do that.
Yeah.
You wonder, because I've thought about this a bit, because businesses now, they refuse service, they're not they're not serving the general public now. So if that means if you're allowed to decide who you serve anymore, if you're a business that serves radical Marxists who protest and cause disruption in Melbourne, could you be held accountable because you've actively selected to serve Marxists? Could you be held accountable for that?
I'd love to open up that can of worms, yes.
Because if you can actually choose, because then you're not a service provider, you're basically being a service selector. And so you're actively choosing who your customers are.
With Facebook, what I love is that, I've said this quite a few times, the powers that be have never forgiven Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook for actually allowing people like us on there in the first place.
I think the interesting thing about Facebook is that even though they do censor a lot of us, a lot of it doesn't get censored. You know what I mean? Like, I think
can still find a way
Facebook
around.
has been probably the greatest engine of the new right, the alt-right, that exists. You know what I mean? Quite literally, because I don't know how much they do censor us, but like so much is all over it still.
I genuinely...
It's only like, they only managed to get 10%. So, I know, maybe, and that's fine in the sense that like, well, okay, you know what I mean? It's an amazing engine for our politics, I think. Because there's so many left-wingers on there too, that they see all this stuff, and they even begin to talk in our memes, and like even like how the alt-right had red-pilled, and then the left had woke, right? That's copy. You know, when they begin to react against us and imitate our own, they've started to meme. I have friends who are Bernie Sanders. They began memeing, and they'll, you know, like the alt-right do, or the new right. The left has tried to meme. When they begin to copy us, you realise that our agenda has reached a level of saturation in our society that's very impressive. And, you know, again, also the fact that we are the main side of politics is being said, that is a compliment. They don't try and shut anyone else up. They only try and shut us up because we're actually saying something important. We're actually saying something that's powerful. Everyone else is a complete idiot, obviously, because they don't want to shut them up. When they want to shut you up, you're on the right track. It's the same with, you know, what I do with my festival, and a lot of other people do. Blair Cottrell and stuff, he's saying something important, which is why they want to shut him up. It's the greatest compliment you can get.
I genuinely think they never really expected us to actually click to Facebook and to social media. They never actually. I think they underestimated just how many of us there are.
I know.
I think they
How
thought
big we can turn.
I think they thought that their propaganda had just been all pervasive and that they would just own the internet. And it really took them by surprise that
They don't understand people's hearts.
we
man.
weaponized their weapon against them.
Yeah, absolutely. We've totally wagged the dog with this Facebook thing. I think it's fantastic.
And
Frustrated.
I think the ultimatum that should be put to Facebook, Twitter, and Google about such a proposal is that you're only considered a publisher if you have community standards select what you want to publish. I would argue that Gab and Telegram, because they only censor people if they commit illegal acts.
Yes.
Like, for example,
It's the way it should be.
You're right.
Christopher Cantwell was banned from Gab for suggesting a better way to affect change after the Christchurch massacre was to gun down leftists. He was banned from Gab for that, which is basically
calls to violence, like the ABC.
It's
Right,
a
I'm with you.
direct incitement to violence, and so
That's the level. That's the.
Gab was not
Actually,
being.
we've still
That's
got to
where it's
put.
beyond
We've
the
actually
pale.
still got to put out that XYZ poll. Should the ABC be banned from social media?
It should. After, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
there was open call for violence on that show. We discussed this last time, Tim, didn't we?
So, Facebook and Twitter, to avoid being labelled as publishers, they have to allow all speech to be considered a platform.
They should.
I think that's a good ultimatum.
That will be the ultimatum. Like eventually, they will have to make that decision, and it's great. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, obviously there is still a lot of stuff there. So to some extent, you know, they obviously do want to allow some conservative voices because, I mean, there are so many still there.
Well, also you
there's
learn.
some concern to allow this stuff to go on. So, you know, I mean, obviously Zuckerberg makes more shekels if everyone can talk and sell ads and stuff. So, I mean, that's all that really probably concerns him.
It's interesting that his college friend Pete Buttigieg has just emerged from just being some random mayor of an Indiana town to being nearly the front runner in the Democratic presidential debate.
Right.
That was broken by Zero Hedge.
Basically,
Mayor Pete, as they call him now.
that's interesting. So that's how
the butt gig.
Zuckerberg hopes to stay out of jail. Basically, I'm actually convinced that the Democrats basically want to destroy him. That they will never forgive him for allowing Donald Trump to be president.
I think
And
Facebook created a Brexit and Trump, the whole thing. It happened through Facebook somehow.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. And that, I don't know, maybe he's just a secret alt-righter. You never know.
Well,
you never know. So many people do not admit what their true politics is. So maybe he's at home with the Pepe the Frog and having a great time. You know?
That would be
and he's
beautiful.
Just, look, I got to censor 10% of the guys
I
just
just
to make it look like I don't like you.
I see the globalists as being divided up into a number of different cabals, and so there's a Zuckerberg faction, and so maybe Zuckerberg is thinking, "Hey, I've got to get my guy up there so I can keep my company and so I can stay out of the jail, because otherwise, this globalist faction are going to destroy me."
Imagine if if that came out. Suppose that Mark Zuckerberg's what we think is his grand plan is successful, and Pete Buttigieg is president.
I thought it was buddy gig.
No,
What?
butt gig's not
It sounds like we said butt plug, but the thing is,
come up with a lot of-
I said
That segues into another story.
yeah,
soon,
but
actually.
I actually said that before I knew he was actually gay himself, so I made an inadvertent gay slur against him. So I'm very sorry about
I basically
that.
make the assumption these days that every major political figure I see, left or right, on mainstream media is gay.
But
It's a pretty safe bet.
Like, of course, they say like he'd be the first gay U.S. president, and I think it would be
Obama was that. Obama was clearly the first guy.
But let me finish.
He's way ahead of
That
him.
it would be quite ironic that the United States has had a black president and a gay president before a female president. Like they've all been male, just different from the white straight male that used to occupy the White House. But yes, also it'd be a gay president who had the word butt in his last name.
I know. You can't make this shit up. It's like name is destiny. Name is destiny, right?
But they had the Democrat debates just happening overnight there.
And what was that car crash like?
Yes, well Biden,
Well, you gotta love that guy, don't you?
Have you heard the latest
more
about
crooked than a
Hunter
$3 bill.
Biden? That a paternity test has revealed that while he was getting divorced to his wife and seeing some other... Yeah, he got this girl pregnant and then started going out with his dead brother's widow. So he's the father to this child of this Arkansas woman.
Biden.
Yeah, Hunter Biden.
Oh, Hunter.
And of course, he got kicked out of the Navy Reserve for cocaine abuse.
I mean, he's clearly his father's bag man. I mean, if you know anything about the way corrupt people work, they generally don't themselves, walk out and collect the money. They have someone within their family do it. I mean, this is the whole thing behind the impeachment bullshit. I mean, it's like everyone who's actually... I mean, Nancy Pelosi's son worked something in the Ukraine. And there's a whole bunch of them, top Democrats. I mean, it was like that was their honeypot. And then now they're trying to blame it on Trump because he began to try and expose it. It's in the level of kind of duplicity in that. I mean, if you've been watching some of the impeachment trials, it's just nonsense what's been going on. And even leftists realise it's nonsense. Again, Bernie Sanders supporters on my page are like, what the fuck is this impeachment thing? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Vote him out in a year if you don't like him. I mean, it's true. I don't know why they're bothering with that. They clearly know they're going to lose, so that's a good thing.
The gush of pressure got to one of the Democrat congressmen on... I'm not sure if he's on the actual impeachment committee, but he was on Hardball with Chris Matthews, Eric Solwell, and he... Well, the video evidence, I won't play it now, is conclusive that yes, he did fart because you can see his release.
We're talking about farts now?
Yes, Fartgate.
Fartgate.
And he denied it, and Hardball and MSNBC said the noise was one of our Hardball mugs that was scraping across the...
Mate, have you been in the same studio and Maddie has farted on air? It's awful. It's really awful. I really can't judge because I burp on air.
I could think of a worse on air accident.
Could you?
Yes.
Why are we talking about this even? Let's have a little bit of manners.
Yes, well, this was just a 24-hour thing because everyone thinks that farting and other forms of flatulence and
Very Mel
toilet
Brooks. Very Mel
humor
Brooks.
is funny.
No, I teach a 4-year-old who thinks it's quite funny too. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I've got to admit it.
I noticed that Benny Johnson, who is one of the Turning Point spokes people, he actually used to work for BuzzFeed but got fired for plagiarism, but now he's a Turning Point. He's got some job with them.
Isn't that always interesting? They make their way from a left-wing organisation to front these fake conservative organisations.
Yeah,
That's quite interesting.
yeah. He put together Benny Johnson. He looks to me. He looks like that Pee Wee Herman character, and we all know what happened to Pee Wee Herman.
He got caught wanking in the cinema, didn't he?
Yeah, and 10 years.
Then the poor prick's career, he was really quite funny. I liked him. I mean, his career was over because of that. I mean,
Yeah, so I don't think you should aim to
been in a
look
few
like
Tim Burton
Pee Wee Herman. And also Pee Wee Herman was caught 10 years later with what was termed a legal collection of child pornography.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go. So Benny Johnson, well, he put together a video of Eric Stutchwell asking questions in the inquiry with a whole bunch of fart noises. But he's also been the one who's been unleashing the Nick Fentes expose clips, exposing that he's a white supremacist, Holocaust denier, rape apologist, homophobe, blah blah blah, you name it.
What's the latest in the Groper Wars? What's been happening?
Well, the Culture War tour is over, and the Groper army, they declared victory.
Victory.
And they also had they've gotten their big major, what would you say, mainstream conservative who's sided with them, which is Michelle Malkin. Because she's
the based half Asian or something.
She's Filipino, which if you look at your
So
US
there's a bit of
history,
Spanish in there, or
but after the Spanish American War of the late 19th century,
there's a huge war
they
there.
conquered the Philippines. So Philippines was part of the United States. So you can make the case that
Keep
Michelle
Philippines
Markin, Michelle Markin is
Bring
not
the Americans
actually because she's known for her anti-immigration stance. And of course, people say, "Well, you're an immigrant yourself," but Philippines was at one point controlled by the United States. So you can say that Filipinos are Americans.
But yeah, there's this connection there. I like that Duterte guy. He's like one of these nationalist populists who's gone completely, really over the top. He's great. I think we should import him. We should import him to our countries. Dutertism.
So, as you know,
I don't think they can afford helicopters there. I think they just use motorbikes.
He's full helicopter rides. That guy. He's great.
yes. So Michelle Malkin, a lot of these college speeches, before Turning Point USA, there was this student group called the Young Americas Foundation. And Michelle Malkin, she's been around for 25 years. And
She's looking all right for that.
yes. But her main issue for that time has been immigration and demographic replacement. She grew up in California and has seen it turn from a red state to a blue state. And she was speaking at the University of California, Los Angeles. And remember, we went through Ben Shapiro's speech at Stanford University, which is also in California, denouncing the alt-right. So Michelle Malkin, it was probably a seminal speech in the future of the US conservative movement, where she called bullshit on basically conservative Inc. That's what she used and said. That
is she still on Fox, by the way?
She hasn't been lately, but she's basically said these conservative Inc. that basically told you to vote for us over the past 25 years while the country burns. And this is what she and Nick Fentes, why they oppose mass immigration, basically on that it'll change electoral math changes the government of the country.
Demographics.
And he's been, now that the Culture War tour is over, he's been saying that blacks and Latinos, they vote 80% plus for Democrats.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of scrutiny on Candace Owens for her Blackset campaign.
Oh, I like her. She's great.
Yeah, which I think is unfair because, I mean, if you're arguing that people still vote in tribes and Candace Owens is a black conservative, what is wrong with her as a black woman, for the sake of this argument, convincing other, like, it might be like some people might consider it a lost cause. You might only convert a small number of blacks, but it's worth it.
But with what Kanye doing his whole Jesus album, they're winning a lot of African Americans over. Media don't want that to be acknowledged, of course, so they don't show it.
It's why we have the expression. They want to keep them on the plantation.
What you think is, in some cases, for example, with African Americans in America, they've been there too long. They are a part of American culture now, and to have a successful nationalism, you have to incorporate that to some extent. So there's a side of African Americans that can be nationalist. I even like that whole. Remember Public Enemy? They dressed up like they were kind of Muslim or something, but they were very ultra conservative. I thought that was cool. They were paramilitary and almost Black Panther or something. I thought but like right wing Black Panther. So I thought that was interesting.
Just a reminder, we are over on Entropy. You can still vote in the poll. You can also ask a question and send through a super chat. I'll put the link in there.
Where's our first super chat? Mike Redder? What's going on here?
I just want to go through Michelle Malkin's tweet because she's now been fired from Young America's Foundation because they're going to make an example of her that if you go against Conservative Inc., even though you've been around 25 years, we're going to basically destroy you.
Okay.
And so this is her response to David French, who's one of the National Review online most prominent writers. He said even though he didn't agree with Kid Drag Storytime, that it was still free speech. So this is what David French says. By the way, on the Nick Fentis, Michelle Malkin controversy, the idea that Fentis represents some of a core of sincere young people with real concerns is just ridiculous garbage. He's a spiteful racist troll with spiteful racist troll audience, and Malkin runs cover for him. And she responded, "You're an arrogant, lazy, SPLC regurgitating smear merchant. I've actually talked to America First kids from CSU, Fort Collins, ASU, Kansas State, UCLA, and University of Wisconsin challenging Open Borders Inc." That's her latest book, Who's Funding Open Borders Inc.
Yeah, wow. I think Open Borders is the way that that's infected the right. I mean, obviously the Liberal Party is very, not really open borders, but they are very pro-immigration still. When we criticise illegal immigrants, go ahead.
Yeah, they are not racist and they are not trolls. You smear to deflect and protect Con Inc.
Good on her.
And
You're saying, Richard?
Yeah.
No, I just think that, it's... there's all this thing about illegal immigrants and stopping illegal immigrants, but the problem is legal immigration. I mean, obviously, illegal immigrants is still a problem, but the main problem is legal immigration. We need to reduce this. And that, I think something like the Groper Wars and the new Fentis chap, he's at least raising that issue. And that, the exact politics is not so important. The way that so many conservatives are still very much open bordersy, like your Shapiro's and all those globalist plants within the new right, I think it's very important to point that out now. I think it's very healthy that people are doing that. Go ahead.
And
I knew we'd turn you into a nationalist, Tim.
Nationalist?
Yeah.
I already consider myself a nationalist.
Just a little bit.
Hey!
Yay!
I believe
My mission is complete.
Yeah, I'm out of here. This is why we have to talk about race.
But Nick Fentis, now that the culture war tour is over, he has made the point that this demographic replacement, you're not allowed to say replacement word because that's a conspiracy theory. Are you actually going, Richard?
I'm going to get a drink.
Okay.
Hey, bring one.
Yeah, no problem.
Cheers.
That Virginia, which used to be a swing state in presidential elections and in the governor's race, that is now a firmly blue state.
Yeah.
And, you can say it's because of demographic change, but also the fact that Virginia is just outside Washington, D.C. And, of course, as the state goes, I've already got a drink here. As the state grows ever bigger, of course, DC, the District of Columbia, is only so big, and so the CIA is based in Virginia, and so if you have all these bureaucrats working in Virginia right next to DC, then of course it's going to flip to a blue state. So that's also that factor as well. But come presidential elections, Virginia is going to be firmly blue. There's also talk about Georgia going blue.
So you're saying that demographic change in America could affect the coming election, like 2020?
And Texas, which of course is undergoing demographic change, Beto O'Rourke only lost by 1% against Ted Cruz in the 2018 Senate election. The guy who wants to take your guns and wants to get rid of religious freedom.
Yeah, if Texas goes, America goes. Yeah. So you're saying that they're saying that demographic change isn't affecting like the 2024 or the 2028 election. It's going to affect the 2020 election.
Well, it's going to become greater and greater. because
it's a real issue too, because there's this book called White Shift. It's published by a kind of globalist kind of guy that talks about how demographics are going to change, 21st century politics.
Yeah, when they say it, it's not a conspiracy theory. Yeah.
Well, they can say that there's going to obviously be a lot of reaction to it because, it really will change. I mean, obviously, when there is another ethnic group dominating, they will then win every election. And, the country changes then. I mean, I just asked the Aborigines how much it changes.
Yeah. But if you look at where the swing states are now, it's always been Ohio and Pennsylvania, but it's the Great Lakes states. And you know where they are. They're up north next to Canada. And, of course, there is now Michigan that flipped to the Republicans in the governor's race and also to Trump. That was the state that delivered Trump the presidency. There's also Minnesota, Wisconsin. Illinois is part of the Great Lakes states. Nick Fentis, he's from Illinois. He said that even though it votes blue, their governorship switches from Republican to Democrat, so he still considers it a swing state. But it's bordered to Canada up north. And, of course, Rebel News, they were live streaming today because the Canadian federal election, that basically showed how the country is split, with the Ontario pretty much delivered Justin Trudeau a second term, while British Columbia, that tended to vote for the New Democratic Party, which is the even further left party, while the Western Prairie states, they were completely blue, which is Conservative Party in Canada. In the United States, blue means Democrat. So they flipped the colours there. And so there's been talk about Wexit. There was a Wexit forum in Calgary in Alberta.
It's like Canada has the flyover states as well, yeah?
So I'm thinking that maybe there needs to be a new nation in North America. You have the Western Canadian states join up with the Great Lakes states and maybe some of the Old West states such as North and South Dakota.
Yep. So you could basically see the coastal elites in both Canada and the United States forming their own, what will soon be failed states. And you actually have a genuine ethno-state.
Push
in
California
the
into
America.
the sea.
And don't forget Quebec, independent sovereign nation.
That's okay. Well, I love the idea of Quebec being an independent sovereign nation. They can be an ethno-state. They can be a French ethno-state.
Yeah. French Canadians.
But of course, we know that secession is
There goes a burp. There's a burp gate.
is not allowed because, Western Australia, they had a referendum in the 1930s to become their own nation. They voted yes,
Really?
but it didn't happen. No. Australia said no, you can't leave. So you can join a union or a Commonwealth federation, but you can never leave.
I talk about the
You can
concept
never
of
leave.
creating facts on the ground. Just say there's a financial crisis, just any of these bubbles that are facing us, like the property bubble, the debt bubble, the
Bubble.
what David Hilton talks about, the grand solar minimum coming along. We've got the demographic bubble about to hit. We've got all these potential chaos agents which could all hit. And so when that happens, that's when the people who are organized say, right, we're going to make facts on the ground. If you want this land back, you're going to have to take it. Yeah.
I think something big's about to happen. I mean, this whole impeachment thing in America seems to have hit the rocks. Doesn't seem to be working for Democrats. They had Bill Maher and Obama come out and say they didn't want a civil war. That means they're about to start one. And so it's kind of interesting. And also, there's rumors that Donald Trump had been poisoned. One of his food testers had been rushed to hospital, and they took him in for a quick checkup. They have this thing where they give you, and it's not poison itself, but when it reacts with things in your gut, so it's kind of very strange. So if they try and kill him, and he knows they've done that, well, I think Trump's going to move it into second gear in a bit of time.
There's a summer bug on my iPad. The
there
plague has infested the studio.
Right.
What did we do wrong?
We're looking at
Where do
you.
we begin?
All right, and
Is the Epstein stuff on? Oh yes.
his
We had all
guards
that
have
stuff with
been
Andrew, Prince
arrested.
Andrew.
Yeah, Prince Andrew has been stood
really?
down from
Royal duties.
royal duties.
Yes.
I think that's a good
And
wise
yes,
move.
because he said he couldn't explain the photo with Virginia Roberts,
Yes.
who is the Epstein Ghislaine Maxwell whistleblower.
Yeah.
And he said that, I remember that night I was at a Pizza Express with my family.
I know, what was that about?
Yeah, I know.
The fuck was that
That's
about?
what everyone's
That was a
wondering.
code word.
The
It really
Duke
wasn't,
of
right?
York Oh, pizza.
I know. I mean, it was like Pizzagate went to like the next level. Pizza Express. You know, it's like these weird code words. What the fuck was going on there with that? That was very strange. I mean, the weird thing about Prince Andrew, obviously he was up to something. But like, I think the Epstein operation was a kind of honeypot, and that I think he had all the prostitutes working for him anyway. Like he had 25-year-old prostitutes working for him. So you could see how you could get a celebrity. He's a party guy, maybe Prince Andrew likes a night out on whatever, and he gets 2 to 3 20-year-olds. And then, you know, Epstein slips in a 17-year-old. Yep. And then suddenly, you know, he's now a sex offender. So, you know, I mean, obviously that I think was going on, and you know, obviously that's the whole point of Epstein. It wasn't the fact that they were all sex criminals. It was a blackmail operation for Israel. And
what are you saying? Robert Maxwell, her father, he just fell off his boat. Exactly. I mean, stop being a conspiracy theorist.
Oh please! I mean, it's no longer, because it's so obviously an operation for the Mossad. It's ridiculous. It's like you can't even deny it.
Yes, 28 years later, Robert Maxwell, his daughter, mysteriously reappears.
Where is she, by the way?
Well, that's a great question.
And why is she not under arrest? Because I watched that documentary, and a few of the accusations were that she was participating in the abuse against underage girls. So she was seen in California recently. Was it Chickafil?
I've talked about this, that most people reckon the photos were staged.
Yeah, but this is mainstream media reporting on this, yes?
But I would like
She's been spotted in Brazil, or she could be six feet under at the
bottom
of the ocean.
She's not safe in Antarctica, trust me. You know, like, if she was living on Mars, she should be worried, you know, because they'd somehow get a rock up there. You know, so I would like to express my condolences to the upcoming suicide of Prince Andrew as well.
Well, don't forget the suicide of the Epstein guards who've been charged.
Yes, I would like to express my condolences.
So they've actually been charged?
Oh, yes. It would be very sad when they kill themselves.
Yes. On the
AB, be anywhere near this case. You would have been like walking down Epstein Street, you'd be worried.
Yeah, it's it. We don't want to know the dirt on Hillary. We don't want to know.
No, it's like we know nothing. We are Colonel Schultz. Yeah, we know nothing.
We've done those things. So the ABC had a big debate. They were talking about terrorism, the usual sort of stuff, saying it's white men are the biggest terror threat in the West. And then they followed that up. They managed to squeeze in the Epstein story in the last couple of minutes, and everybody hurriedly had a little discussion on this, just so that they could make it look like they're talking about Epstein without actually talking about Epstein. And so the general consensus was that it was about toxic masculinity.
Epstein.
Yes, and it was about
toxic, that one, wasn't it?
And it was about racism, because if a black guy had done this, he would have gone down much sooner.
How long did Bill Cosby get away with, you know, putting the Spanish fly in the women's drinks? Even though in 1969 he talked about putting Spanish fly in girls' drinks.
Yep.
And he didn't get caught until this decade.
And this is why they'll never let any member of the Uncuckables on the ABC, because it would have been so easy.
When is the Uncuckables version of Honda? You know what I mean? Can't we go on and...
Well,
they could save their reputation.
We could get a
invitation. Then they'd be look, we put the Uncuckables on.
We might get...
If we get the gropers on and be like, yes, just keep asking questions.
They should have a new right Quanda, dear ABC.
We might get an invitation to be on Hack Live, because that used to be a bit of a daring program, because...
is that even still going?
Well, they just had, it seemed, 2 specials, because it was the Aussie Patriots, or the ABC was blamed for giving Blair Cottrell a big platform. Yes. And he was with that Aboriginal woman who was just on Q&A recently. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't say woman. Person.
Yes.
Person.
Yeah, the Mo.
Yes.
Is she she's doing Movember, yes?
They are doing Movember. Yes. And they were the ones that said, let's burn stuff. Yeah. But Blair's band...
The woman with the red hair. She was like Witchy Poo.
Blair's band, but she's
Witchy
not.
Poo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they also had male privilege bullshit, where they had Daisy Cousins with Clementine Ford.
Are they actually allowed Daisy Cousins on there?
International Men's Day. And my thing is, I thought every day was International Men's Day.
Yeah, but the host of
right, you know what I'm saying.
The host of those 2
we let the women have 1, yeah.
The host of
this is every day. Let's be honest.
The host of those 2 Hack Live specials, we remember, is Tom Tilley, and Tom Tilley has.
Do you remember when he spoke to Herschel from Brisbane? It was epic.
Yes.
It's like the same with when is White Europeans Month? It's like, no, every month is White Europeans Month.
Tom Tilley
we've got
every month.
July, we've
If
got
you have a
August.
month, that means you don't really actually have anything or a day. You know what I mean? It's like, we should never have any of that because that means we still run things, basically. So that's all right.
Yeah. So,
I think we're done with that. Ted.
yeah, even though Tom Tilley, he worked at Triple J and was obviously a progressive, he was still a white male. So he's stepped down after 12 years at Triple J. Yeah. And I just want to show you who his replacement is.
Oh, yeah.
And that is Avina Diaz.
Does she identify as a white nationalist?
I don't know.
Maybe she's
I don't think so.
Secretly based.
She could be.
There
Like
is
Zuckerberg.
some.
On the inside, you
There is
never
some
know.
black, white, and red there. So you know, never know.
But you'll recall that ABC Melbourne, they fired Red Simons, who was the...
Oh, he was great.
Yes.
Did they fire him?
Yeah,
Really? Did they really?
replaced him
Red
with
Simon.
You know, he was secretly right-wing.
woman and a man of
I think
colour.
he could have been.
He was.
actually.
No, he was. I met him at a party, and
Yeah.
we had a chat. And he was like, "You're okay." I was like, "Okay." And a couple of, I would say, a couple other people from Hey Hey Saturday were like that too.
Maybe
I
we
loved it. He would just get on there in the mornings and whinge.
He had
was
me on.
one of the only ones I would actually listen
He had
to.
me on his show talking about Muff one year, and
right.
he was really good and very informed about it all. And then I actually said, because you know his cheeky attitude on the Hey Hey Saturday show when he
Yes.
used to just wind people up.
Yep.
That was actually the inspiration when I was a teenager. I thought, it's just funny the way he behaves.
Yeah.
I thought, I want to be a silly cunt like that.
Yes, but hey, it's Saturday. Its reunion was killed over the blackface.
I mean, it was good enough for Justin Trudeau, and he's still in power.
Yes.
It's good enough for everyone. Blackface
I want to
is-
see
it's
Harry
mainstream.
Connick Jr. go over and lecture at Justin Trudeau.
I didn't even see what.
We've got a few questions on entropy.
have a
I'll
look.
put the link in the description again if you want to ask us a question, or even better, send us through
A super chat.
super chat as well, because we're still hanging out for some. We've got Brucey Boy, who is the Anthony Kuma impersonator on the right. You're on the right, Richard.
Who's Anthony Kuma?
He's part of the Compound Media. It was one of the first private radio networks, because Anthony Cumia got fired from broadcast radio for saying too many offensive things. That's where Gavin McInnes had his first show, the Gavin McInnes show, before he went to go over to CRTV, and then when it merged with The Blaze, he got fired. Gavin McInnes has now got his own platform now, Free Speech TV, which has Miley Yiannopoulos and Coulter on it. But yes,
Who am I? I don't know. I'm an ASIO agent who's been hired to infiltrate the new right for the world powers. I don't know who I am myself. I'm not an ASIO agent, unfortunately. Unless they paid me enough, then maybe I would be.
Atnick76 says, we will see something like Spanish flu hit again. WA are letting Chinese wander in and out, and they have swine flu killing people, plus all the usual viruses coming via the... Yeah, that's... Well, it is a question followed by... Yeah, I'm not sure. Swine flu is... You'd have to give me more evidence that that's a problem.
I'll give you a fair
Something
bit
to do
of
with hating China? That's okay.
I'll give you a fair bit of circumstantial evidence. I can tell you that people come here and they've never had allergies. They come to Melbourne, all of a sudden they have allergies. They leave Melbourne, they go to another country, they don't have allergies.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Jones talks about this stuff. There's a lot of various poisons in our culture.
Well, like Melbourne is, we are ringed by hills, and we have 15,000 people coming into the city from every country in the world every month.
You know what Rasputin used to do to avoid being poisoned? He used to actually
I think
take
it's
a
every
little
week.
poison. So in a sense, I think that we live in a poisoned society. You almost have to expose yourself just to a little bit of poison because it builds up your actual immune system. You see, so that way, when actual real poisoning comes along, you have a certain level of kind of immunity to it. I think that's interesting philosophy.
And we've got a super chat from Zero Tolerance for $5. Thank you very much. Happy belated birthday, Tim, because yes, I turned 30
Happy
on
Happy
on
birthday!
Thursday.
Hey, hey.
Casual Thursday, I like it. Well, it's too hot to wear.
Anything more than
Yeah,
our t-shirts.
and I didn't want to turn tonight's show into a Bonds ad.
No.
That triggered Dave.
Well,
Yes, so I've put the entropy link in again, and of course the
Hong Kong.
the final item on the agenda is of course the Hong Kong protests
crackdown.
have what
Did you say Hong Kong again?
Hong Kong.
Okay.
He sounds a bit.
He kind of said Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
That's
I
the
actually-
cultural appropriation.
I've been to Hong Kong a number of times. I think it's very sad what's going on there. I mean, let's make Hong Kong British again. This wouldn't be
Yes.
happening under British rule. It's a very big mistake giving Hong Kong back to China is a revolting threat. Anyone who's pro-Chinese is an absolute fucking cunt. You know, particularly within the West. I mean, obviously, you know, China has a position, and you know, I mean, I think we're going to have to make some compromises to it. I like the way Trump is fighting them economically. I think that's the way to do it. You need to sabotage your economy, then they'll be less aggressive in relation to like expanding, which is exactly what they're now doing.
So so the demonstrations have become more violent, and it's been by both the demonstrated protesters and the police. So, as Trump would say, many sides. And it's obviously coming. Everyone's wondering, is it going to be a Tiananmen Square 2.0? But of course, it's 2019 when the demonstrations can be streamed in real time. And Carrie Lam, who's the chief executive of Hong Kong, God, you'd hate to be her. She said, "Oh, we won't prosecute minors who've been involved in the riots."
There's some footage of like a group of protesters being put on a fucking train and taken off to some Chinese gulag. I mean, that was like this week. Wow. So, you know, I really think that America, Trump and Bojo or whatever, and they did receive a huge amount of boost in the polls, send in peacekeepers. You know what I mean? And then start sticking a fucking candle up their ass now, those fucking Chinese bastards.
The New York Times actually got
Hong Kong's in danger of basically becoming the fall of Berlin. Like you've got one city versus a country of 1.3 billion people. What chance do they stand?
They're
No,
thinking
they don't.
that
It's a crisis point that you can kind of, if you control what's going on in Hong Kong, you will stop China then, you know, having the confidence to go do something else.
But
so I think it's a crucial spot for us to stand up.
But there is a theory going around that because the eyes of the world are on China, both economically and their human rights record, because there was that leak to the New York Times about what they're doing to the Uyghurs in China, which you wouldn't call them concentration camps, just brainwashing,
re-education camps.
Cultural genocide camps. And what is that? Xi Jinping, he was quoted as saying, "Show them no mercy."
Yes.
You wrote, China is right about Muslims.
Well, yeah. Basically, the point I made.
That was interesting.
The point I made is that China know how to keep a country together. They know how to deal with followers of a religion.
Let's see how it pans out.
They know how to deal with followers of a religion that wants to take over the world.
I was reading a book about Mao Zedong the other day, and it talks about how in the early days he was very interested in nationalism, and that he also tried, with his version of communism that he brought in, he did try and keep a strong nationalist feeling. I think that's why Chinese communism is the most powerful communist.
So you're saying he mixed socialism with nationalism? Interesting.
He absolutely
never been done before.
And you know, there's a strong sense, and this is the reason it's successful. China has been, and essentially probably is going to take over the world this century. I mean, we're going to hopefully at least either stop it or walk out some kind of detente, some kind of Alexander Dugin, you know, like tripartite sharing of power in the world with, say, Russia, China, and the West. That's probably the way to go. Yeah, you know, I think there's a strong sense of nationalism within, and obviously early on he worked with the Kuomintang and other people like this who are strong nationalists. So.
I couldn't believe Bob Carr said this week, because he was talking about going back to Andrew Hastie's column, which sort of turbocharged the China discussion in Australia, where he said that we need to not make the same mistake the French did in military underestimating Nazi Germany. And of course, it was Andrew Hastie compares China to Nazi Germany. And Bob Carr, who is former New South Wales Premier and Foreign Minister, said that China helped us defeat the Nazis. No, the Chinese Communist Party didn't. Who was in power during World War II in China? It was the Kuomintang, the nationalist. I mean, sure, the Chinese Communist Party.
It was Chiang Kai-shek.
Yeah, they wanted to
Taiwan,
defeat the Japs as well, but it was nationalist China that won World War II, and then afterwards the communists steamrolled them.
Also, Hastie spent far more time talking about actual Chinese communists, and he also compared Chinese communist China to Stalinist Russia. It was an amazing
important to know their enemies and stuff. So it's very important to study the history of China.
And
that was the point that he made. He was making the point that the Chinese, both because they're Marxist and because they're Chinese, i.e. Confucian, they think in the long term.
They do.
We don't. We think in terms of electoral
really
science.
their greatest power. It's like, if it doesn't happen now, it's going to happen in a generation or two.
Yes.
And they're quite correct.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we do not think this way at all, because we've been having someone since World War II try and dismantle every element of our civilization, and you know, it's at least partly working. Yeah. Anyway, I got to go, boys.
Yeah,
right. It's been
thank
great
you for
talking
joining
again.
us.
It's a pleasure. Sorry,
see you,
10 o'clock. Good on you, Kang. So
hopefully, Muff will we'll be the first to know. We'll get the exclusive.
That's right. We'll get the exclusive. We'll be back.
Maybe in another dimension, maybe you can breach a hole in the universe.
That sounds good. See you, boys.
See ya.
Cheerio.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're just about ready to wind things up.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish on because obviously the big new China story in Australia this week was not just the escalating protests, but the fact that Andrew Hastie and James Patterson were denied a visa to visit China by the Chinese government. They were going on a study tour by the China Matters group, which is a Chinese front group. I prefer to call it China Batters because that's basically what China does, and it's a propaganda tour. And so the Chinese government said, unless Hastie and Patterson repent, they won't be allowed in. And we wish they would stop these colonial ideas. And of course, they told them to get stuff. But obviously, it's been a political wedge issue, Australia-China relationship.
Did the Chinese use the term about the Australians, saying that they had colonialist ideas?
Yes.
That's very interesting because the Chinese are the ones engaged in colonialism at the moment.
Well, Tibet is not China.
Yep.
There's debate whether Taiwan is China.
Yep. There's a lot of debate over whether Australia is China. There's 1 million Chinese people here.
Yeah,
and they're not Chinese Australians. They're colonists.
And Hong Kong, they speak Cantonese there, and in mainland China they speak Mandarin.
Yeah, and then you've got Singapore as well. Like you've basically got a country which is basically a Chinese colony.
Yeah, and you've got Malaysia, there's the native Malayans, and then there's Malaysian Chinese, and it's actually Vice did an article on Malayan, or as they term them, neo-Nazis who want to get rid of all the Malaysian Chinese.
So the Australians also have been doing a series on Chinese living abroad, and they've been basically talking about how all these Chinese, they might have been paying lip service to the countries that they are staying in for a while, but they're feeling a stronger and stronger affiliation to their home country, to China. And so you've got a country of 1.3 billion people basically spreading their diaspora around the world, spreading their economic power. David Hilton did a piece for the Pickering Post today, which we'll publish either tomorrow or the day after, talking about how basically China have been using their scientists in America to get American military secrets. Basically, you've got to view every Chinese person as a colonist and as a foreign agent.
Well,
there's 1.3 billion of them. They've got plenty to go around.
Nearly every Tuesday on our Trans Tasman talk show basically provides me with another example of how the Chinese Communist Party have infiltrated the New Zealand government, and there was because most of our nations, government money is given to the film industry. There was a film that they wouldn't fund unless it got rid of a anti-Chinese message, and both the New Zealand National Party and the New Zealand Labour Party have Chinese Communist Party handlers, and New Zealand is supposed to be part of the Five Eyes intelligence network. Basically, China has managed to basically stab New Zealand in the eye and blind it, which is not reported on at all. I mean, there's all this talk about Australia's relationship. We have a free movement agreement with New Zealand. You can come to Australia, New Zealand, and vice versa without a visa. This is why we do Trans Tasman talk, because of the two Anglo-Sphere nations of the South Pacific. One is it's under severe foreign infiltration, which you could call colonization.
Yes. Well, yeah, the whole Pacific is our soft underbelly. Yeah.
Oh, well, China's been buying the Pacific Islands as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, to fight climate change.
Yeah.
But some people are actually speculating that because China they can't afford a Tiananmen Square 2.0, and the US Congress, they passed a motion supporting the Hong Kong protesters. People are actually wondering whether China would just cut their losses because they don't actually need Hong Kong as much as they did in 1997. So they might actually just retreat and say, okay, Hong Kong can be an independent country, and will just save themselves from that. They'll try to spin it as an honourable surrender.
Oh, you could. The thing about that argument about how they don't need Hong Kong like they did in '97, that's been turned the other way though as well. They don't. they don't need Hong Kong to drive their economy because they've got a good economy, so they can crush it like a bug if they want.
Well, except the world is watching. Everyone's going to know if they crush it and how the people are going to be crushed and where all the blood and bodies are. It's 2019. You can see all this gory stuff.
People write off a comment by Mao Zedong from the 60s or 70s, but you've got to take it at face value. Mao Zedong said, China does not fear nuclear war. We've got they had 700 million back then. They've got 1.3 billion now. You could wipe out 500 million Chinese in nuclear war, and they'd still be one of the biggest countries on earth. So, it's like you've got to take those sorts of things into consideration. Like they're just that massive. Yes,
but they're at their most challenging period.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously,
well, they're at their most challenging period because you've got a line going down, and that's American power, and you've got a line going up, and that's Chinese power. And when those two lines get close to intersecting, that's the most dangerous period, because that's when China starts to go, hey, we can actually challenge. That's when America thinks maybe now's the time to actually crush China before they actually take us over. We are actually entering that danger period.
Obviously, both nationalists and conservative libertarians are obviously concerned about China, but for different reasons. And that's because the conservative libertarians, they're globalists. They want to spread classically liberal democracy. And so Hong Kong is a nice democratic cause where if you're a nationalist, nation first, like obviously we're Australia first, but obviously in the United States, Nick Fentes is America first. The only reason you should care about China is what they can do to us. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason why you should care about what's happening in other countries at all.
Yeah, but we're talking about two giants having a fight, and they stomp their foot. Yeah.
Although we are still part of the British Empire.
Yeah.
And so we do care. Well, we care about the United States because their culture influences ours, but obviously
we care about America because a large portion of America are our cousins, our ethnic cousins.
Yeah. And there is a lot of both economic and political presence in Australia. But UK general election, which is happening December 12th, Boris Johnson is still ahead of the head in the polls, and there's been an informal Leave alliance where Nigel Farage has said that Brexit Party will only run in Labor seats and that he won't stand as a candidate, making it easier for Boris Johnson to retain his already existing seat. Some people are saying
so they've actually managed to do a deal. Like I heard that they weren't going to do a deal.
Oh, well, Nigel Farage, he's done basically a unilateral deal.
Okay.
Because if you're a single issue party like the Brexit Party, that's all. The reason why he left UKIP, Nigel Farage, and founded the Brexit Party, because that's all that he wants is Brexit. And if that's all you're concerned about, even if Boris Johnson says, no, we're not going to do an alliance, you should just do it anyway. You should just do a unilateral alliance because, I mean, the whole idea of Nigel Farage's career has been to make himself unemployed as an MEP.
Yeah.
I mean, he should be becoming unemployed by the beginning of next year.
That'll be his dream. So you're saying that they're going to run against Labor, but they're not going to run against the Conservatives?
Yes.
Right.
The seat's held by Conservatives.
Good plan.
Yeah. And there's been so many embarrassing Labor Party stuff-ups. Apparently, the British Labor Party, they put out a flyer with a young British couple, and it turned out the guy...
Well, did they actually put up a British couple that was both white and both straight?
The guy was white, but the woman, I think, she looked about Middle Eastern or maybe subcontinent. Yeah. But the white guy, he'd been exposed making a lot of anti-Israeli comments and calling the Zionists Nazis.
It's why a lot of nationalists are actually a little bit torn because there's a bit of left-wing anti-Zionist sentiment in the Labor Party. It's quite funny.
I don't actually I wish Israel all the best, but I actually don't care about the two states, Israel and Palestine. I just think we should have nothing to do with it.
We should never have given them back. Like after like.
So it should still be British Palestine.
Yes, because like in like the Crusades, we took back the Holy Land from the Muslims, and then we lost it to them again. Then after nearly 1,000 years, we finally take it back. And what do? We give it away. They should have reformed the Crusader states.
We've got a few super chats here. $10 from Nick Heath. They are a plague. I have to deal with them at the moment in courts. You'll have to specify who.
He might be talking about the Chinese.
Perhaps. And Radical Islamophobe has sent through $25. Thank you so much. Shy Witcher Sarah Hanson Young on Sky Today said that if it wasn't for climate change, our bushfires would just fizzle out. How did that bimbo get elected? Well, she was asked about arsonists because there's been a lot. Basically, arsonists in Australia, they're like our mass shooters. She has said, Sarah Hanson Young, that yes, arsonists are bad, but climate change is making the arsonist fires more effective. So, yeah, the arsonists' crimes are becoming greater.
Yeah. You've basically got the Greens desperately trying to insist that it's climate change and not, as stated at the start of the stream, it's actually the green environment policies. Like they're actually stopping people.
It's almost like it's
from
a
clearing the
conspiracy.
land. Yes. They stop people from actually managing their land properly so that fires don't get too bad. And then when fires do become catastrophic, they blame climate change so that they can implement more of their policies. Yeah.
Well, Jordan Steele John, the new... he's the WA senator. He came in when Scott Ludlam was the first Section 44 knockout. He said in the Parliament that the major parties are no better than arsonists when it's come to bushfires.
Yeah,
and
I read about that
no
too.
other Greens have repeated that. They won't condemn him, but sort of saying, he was just being very passionate and emotions are running high.
This is why you should never celebrate the removal of one leftist... what's the word when you have an enemy? Yeah, basically never celebrate too hard the removal of one leftist enemy, because he replaced Scott Ludlam, who was removed during the Section 44 fiasco. And Scott Ludlam, like, he burst on the scene. He had a viral, like his first speech to Parliament went viral because like he just he was criticizing Tony Abbott. He was talking about all the usual talking points. So for a while he was like, big bad Greenie. Look who they replaced him with. They replaced him with a guy in a wheelchair who you can't give this guy too much of a hard time because he's in a wheelchair. Like, he has so many victim points. It's not funny. And so this guy basically has a license to say really inflammatory things.
Yeah, his most famous quote, you're aware of it, the era of the able-bodied white man is over.
Yes.
So is what he's saying that if he was not in a wheelchair, he would be fully white privileged. So basically he's saying that I've got identity politics points because I'm in a wheelchair, even though I'm a white male.
Yeah. Is he that white?
Yeah, he's definitely white.
Okay.
But yes, we've got another super chat from Keen-Eyed Joe, $5.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hong Kong is to China what Ukraine was to Russia. Well, probably I'd say that Xinjiang province is the Ukraine, given that was that 5 million kulaks were killed by Stalin's Russia during the famine. I hope I've got that 5 million correct.
I think you might be underestimating.
Yeah. Hong Kong is deliberately being sabotaged by dissidents to destabilize China. If you are a nationalist, can you support interfering in other countries? Yes, I've heard that theory.
It is a very good question.
The Carnage House boys, they've alleged, hypothesized on their podcast that the CIA could be funding it, or it could be the Koch brothers, because obviously they are globalists, and obviously if China had a bit more free markets, that would benefit them.
I am a little wary of wanting to spread liberal democracy to Hong Kong. it's like what you've got a choice between real communism and slow communism. What are you going to do? Yeah.
And Nick Heath has sent us another $10. Thank you.
Thank you.
She wasn't in SA at the moment because they are investigating the cause, and the Greens are guilty. Yes, Sarah Hanson-Young was interviewed from New South Wales on Sky News. I saw that interview. So because South Australia, they had because there's actually a new one in this catastrophic. It was invented in the past 10 years. So they say unprecedented catastrophic bushfires. It's because it's in unprecedented new fire danger warning.
Yeah, it's because the scrub is built up to unprecedented levels.
Maybe there should be a
200
fire
years.
and brimstone fire level.
Yeah. We could do with one in Melbourne, eh?
Yes, so going back to British election, we're going to be doing, it's on Thursday, the 12th of December UK time, the election, but the results will begin to come in during the daytime, Friday the 13th of December. Ooh.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun.
Yes.
'Cause I think I can be there.
Yes,
Yeah.
both you and I are going to be here. We'll see from the others.
Pencil
of
it
course.
in, people.
If there are any other vloggers in the chat, you're welcome to join to let us know. They do it a bit differently in the UK, announcing the election results. They don't have progressive count updates like we do in Australia. They count all the votes, each constituency, and then they go to like a town hall, and the returning officer announces the vote with all the candidates on stage.
Okay.
And so you have some candidates who get like 100 votes who dress up in costumes,
Okay.
basically to like, because they get to be on national TV and like troll, basically.
Okay, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Okay, I wonder if I'll get drunk.
Oh, it's if the results come in after midday, isn't that the rule?
Yeah, no hairs of the dog. Yeah.
All right, that brings us to the end of the show.
Beautiful.
Of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Click the bell to allow notifications so you know when the show goes live. Hit the like button, leave a comment below, and share, because we know that YouTube is not a platform, it is a publisher, and so obviously it likes certain things published more than others. So it's important that you republish our work, the link to our work elsewhere.
That's it.
And of course, we have a website, theuncuckables.com, which has the archive of episodes and links to the podcast version of the show. I'll be back tomorrow night for Wilmsfront, 7 p.m. Melbourne time, because I wasn't the only person who turned 30 in November. Blair Cottrell, he recently turned 30. And I mentioned this last week, but obviously it's happening tomorrow, so it's worth plugging now, that we're both from the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. Frankston is sort of the area that we grew up. Obviously,
It's like you guys are basically brothers, yeah.
but we're two very different people and have had very different life experiences. But we've both seen the world change so much since we were born in 1989. I mean, I was born when they were using any utensils they could to break down the Berlin Wall. Like the citizens of East Germany, they got impatient and just got any type of pick and axe and just they wanted to escape communism. But of course, it's been reinvented and resold in 2019.
Yeah. There is one theory that it was all staged. If you think about it, you've got a bunch of international communists in charge of a country the regime was basically came about because you had a whole bunch of foreign invaders from no particular ethnicity whatsoever come into the country. They want to spread communism throughout the world. There's a theory basically that Russia, the Soviet Union, was only ever their tool, and they basically staged the whole collapse of the Soviet Union because by that stage they'd spread their tentacles throughout the West anyway.
Well, it's had a lasting impact on Eastern Europe. Those nations are still incredibly poor, and that's not what happened. What happened after World War II, when the Soviet Union set up the satellite states. And I've heard that from one, because what's not talked about after the war is the the post-German expulsions and ethnic cleansing, which I heard one historian say as high as 11 million ethnic Germans were slaughtered in
after World War II.
After World War II. And of course, half the nation suffered under communism for 45 years. Do you want to know the fun fact about the night the Berlin Wall came down? Do you know why there was they didn't send in the tanks or whatever, or?
Yeah, there was a mix-up in language. Yeah,
no, because
the
East German leadership, they were at a movie premiere that night called Coming Out, which was a pro-gay communist film, and so they were watching that while the wall was being smashed down.
Really?
Yeah. So homosexuality caused the downfall of the Berlin Wall.
It was a bit of a breakout.
Yeah. So
hey, we didn't talk about. No. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. So tomorrow night with Blair, I'll obviously be talking about 30 years life on Earth, and obviously going into a bit more detail about his court case, which of course his appeal trial judgment's been reserved. He's had a bit more time to reflect, and also want to get his opinion on the Groyper War and Nick Fuentes leading America First, because it's basically because we have a massive conservative problem here in Australia. You only have to turn on Sky News.
Yeah, they're like cockroaches.
Yes, but they're being destroyed over in the United States, and you've seen over in the UK, Tommy Robinson. He's in court. He's being sued by some Muslim student for he shared some fights that he was involved in, and so Tommy Robinson's before the court. But Mark Collett, I've mentioned this before, he's basically, you would say, taken risen to the prominence that Tommy Robinson once did, and of course he's a blast from the past. He got quite a lot of mainstream media attention the summer of 2002 when he was the youth organiser for the British National Party. Russell Brand did his, Nazi Boy episode, where it was funny. Russell Brand, he tried to take the moral high ground, even though what we know now is that during the filming of that doco-series, in the last one, he actually decides to have a gay experience and get jerked off by another guy, Russell Brand.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yes, but he was, during that time...
See my earlier comment.
Yeah. Russell Brand, during the filming of that episode, was addicted to heroin, alcohol, and sex.
Yes.
And he's having a go at Mark Collett.
Yeah, Russell Brand is a dickhead.
Yeah. And of course there was the Channel 4 one, Young Nazi and Proud, which they secretly filmed him, like they told him the cameras were off. He didn't, obviously, he said, stuff which is you're not allowed to say in mainstream, but it wasn't as bad as, Wikipedia says. But it's extremely unethical to say, we've turned the cameras off, but they're rolling. Yeah. But Mark Collett, 17
I knew we'd turn you into a nationalist, Tim.
I was just talking about the unethical secret recording then.
Absolutely.
Yes. But so they used that even though... they told him that, we're only going to be filming you in this time. So I'm not sure what sort of release he signed, but if you're, participating in, some sort of documentary, they're supposed to tell you when the cameras are rolling, when they're not. But yes, Mark Collett, 17 years later, obviously he spent the British National Party, they got 2 MEPs, I should say, in 2009. Mark Collett, he's launched his own nationalist lobby group, Patriot Alternative, has his YouTube channel and Patriotic Review Weekly, and he's incredibly well-spoken and articulate, much better. I'd say Nick Fuentes, obviously, he has the eccentric Joker persona. He said on his Monday show that he'd seen Joker for the 7th time to celebrate its 1 billionth. It's reaching 1 billion in the box office.
That 1 billion mark. That's how he's used that number 1 billion a few times, hasn't he?
Yes, he wanted to correct a figure that he got incorrect before.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm just contrasting Nick Fuentes, who is sort of the grand scheme, or sort of Mark Collett, sort of I wouldn't say he's sort of the posh intellect, but he He's a doer as well. He's both well-spoken and he's a doer as well. He door knocked during the British National Party days. He campaigned his socks off. That's why they won offices in local governments and got the 2 MEPs there.
Yeah, so Mark Collette's a smart campaigner.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been trying to get him on our show, haven't we?
Yes. We have had some positive correspondence from him, but as you can imagine, he's probably incredibly busy at the moment.
I'll just keep bugging him. Like, seriously, just keep emailing the guy. We've got to get Mark Collett. It would be awesome. It would be pretty epic. Yeah.
I think next Fantest would probably be a bigger stretch.
Oh, well, let's get everybody on this show. It'll be great.
All right. So, just all reminders, keep checking out the unshackled.net. We've got a few new contributors, so we're publishing articles every day, as well as our Unshackled Productions, which is my Wilms Front program, new episodes of The Report from Tiger Mountain, and of course, during weekdays, most days, Detonation with Steel Archer.
Cool. So, XYZ, come to our website, www.xyz.net.au. You can listen to me and Maddie bang on and debate about proprietarianism at the moment. That seems to be our thing. You'll hear us on Monday nights at 9 p.m. I'm also doing a short podcast with Mark Moncrief from Melbourne Traditionalists. You'll see that when we publish it. What's also pretty cool at the moment is that we're now getting cross-posted on Pickering Post, which is epic. David Hilton has had a few pieces published there. I've had a few. Hopefully Adam Piggott will get a few up there as well. I really like the convergence that's going on, both in the written word between all the different blogs and here on YouTube, like with all the different YouTubers. Between all, I see everything sort of coming together and working in the same direction. I think it's going to be pretty epic.
Yeah, and on the Unshackled, we republished the Carnage House Brothers articles on our website as well, because obviously they're primarily a YouTube channel. Obviously, when you're a YouTube channel, not many people know about your website, so that gets them a bit more exposure there, which obviously we're happy to self-promote. And they've actually got... They're starting to produce their podcast on a more regular basis now. They're doing a sports and culture and entertainment podcast as well. So that obviously it's coming up to the end of the uni and school year for them, so they've got a bit more free time as well. So carnagehouseproductions.com.
And check out
what?
James Fox Higgins ones. What's it called again? I should know it.
Rational Rise TV.
The Rational Rise TV.
Yeah, it's a YouTube channel. He has his blog, rationalrise.com. And then there's the Rational Rise TV free speech, self-hosted video platform, which doesn't just have his content, but has the Uncuckables, XYZ Live, Maddie's Modern Life. Doesn't have Wilms Front yet, but it will.
Yeah, I want him to write some more pieces. His writing is excellent, but I know.
And of course, he did the theme and the graphics for the Uncuckables as well on my program, Wilms Front.
Yeah, that's it. Cool. So I think we're done. Yeah.
Yes. I don't think I need to remind anyone of anything else. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody. Always appreciate people staying all the way through.
Yeah, and remember to do your best to prevent fires in your own way.